Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Mass. We have DJ on a Planeswalker Stompy deck versus Craig on Outcome, one of the most powerful blue cards that we've seen in Vintage unrestricted for quite some time. Planeswalker Stompy is going to have, I believe, Tarmogoyfs alongside perhaps the most powerful card type Planeswalkers. They certainly are getting some numbers on the restricted list now with Karn and Narset. Over in Legacy, Renin 6 getting the axe. Undercosted Planeswalkers are a very powerful effect since they can be repeated turn over turn. And here we see a very dangerous hand. This Gataxian Probe feels like it would be so much stronger if it was a Duress. Draws a card for DJ, but there's a ton of cards in Craig's hand that pose a huge threat. DJ jams his own Narset. This was filmed in February. I'm not actually sure if this was before or after the banning. Let me see what I can find on that as Craig builds his mana base. Teferi gets Force of Negation, and Narset finds another Force of Negation. Dak Faden, and he teams up with Narset to discard a card out of Craig's hand, draw one, discard two. Brain Freeze and PO going to the bin. And this still seems super dangerous. I believe he's got the Breach in hand, so if that resolves, he can potentially just be off to the races here. We saw Force of Negation off of that Narset. And it's going to be a Force of Will pitching Mental Misstep. So Force of Negation kept in hand can be hard cast on further attempts. Black Lotus coming down. And a little tempting for Dak. Dak could actually steal that Lotus. Craig going to be forced to draw and then discard two. These Planeswalkers really teaming up. Narset's static ability along with Dak's plus ability means that these Planeswalkers would be happy to do this all day. And Paradoxical Outcomes being blanked by this Narset. Demonic Tutor off the top, that does get Force of Negation. And now it's a question of if DJ is out of counters. He's got a Ponder, Shuffle. Even if he is, at this point Dak can actually just start filtering for him as Craig is hellbent. Ancestral Recall reloading. DJ's situation is looking very, very strong here. And at the point where Dak could potentially ultimate a Treasure Cruise now in this game, Whew. I mean, gotta feel like this game is getting pretty close to over. We'll see what Craig decides to do. Overwhelming card advantage. Narset really blanking. And there we go. So Collector Oofs came down, a pair of them. Craig sacrificing his Black Lotus in response, as otherwise Dak would actually be able to steal it for his own use. Wasn't going to do Craig any good on his side of the board, so he sacrificed it to get it out of the way. One more draw step, and that is it. So DJ off to a tremendous start there. Narset and Dak Faden teaming up, and really just about anything could mop up from there. A pair of 2/2s for 2 mana, actually getting called off the bench and clear up that situation. Tarmogoyf, probably the more likely clock, but Collector Roof is also incredibly good versus outcome because it shuts off all of the artifact mana, which it is just chock full of. You're running your original solo Moxen along with your Mox Opal, Mana Crypt. You got Sensei's Top in there. I mean, it is about as loaded up as it gets. And Collector Roof does line up just horribly against you. And that is why a couple of Lightning Bolts are so important. Not only do they have the ability to kill almost everything that the deck is really worried about. It'll clear a Narset usually. Not as well as Red Blast, stopping it from coming down, but you know, you got to take what you can get. It also clears all of the different human threats, things like Lavinia and Thalia, and of course Collector Oof is a big one now as well, as is Leovold. So, I mean, Lightning Bolt actually incredibly good. Such a simple design. Been around since '93, part of Richard Garfield's Magic as he intended it. And it is just incredibly good right now in this control/combo shell. You only need a couple of them. And on top of all of that, it's actually the kill condition once you get Past in Flames going. If your opponent is running something like a Blightsteel Colossus, you can actually just Lightning Bolt them out of the game if need be. You don't have to brain freeze them to death, though that also happens quite a bit too. You can just brain freeze them and then ancestral them. Really no shortage of ways to win the game, but Lightning Bolt gives you an additional line. If they do have some type of shenanigans, you don't have to worry about it. So Sensei's Top, spinning Mox Opal and Mox Sapphire, giving Craig a nice mana base here, but it is vulnerable to Collector Oof. Null Rod, Stony Silence. There's a few different printings. And a Cindervine's coming down. Yeah, Null Rod and Abeyance is one of the few cards that I still kind of have a problem with. There's blatant power level errata there. They're both from the same set. They're worded the same. One of them stops Moxes from tapping, one of them doesn't. And now Wheel of Fortune being slammed into a Force of Negation, Force of Will force it through. A Underworld Breach going to the graveyard. And passing, no land drop there. A very unlikely 7 there, leaving him with no additional mana development. This is a super mana greedy deck, so it's got to be disappointing for Craig. Cindervine's a very potent card in this matchup. It's actually going to sacrifice it to go after Craig's mana. That shuts off his Mox Opal. Would be great if DJ had some type of presence on board. If he had a clock, I'd be much more excited about that line. Cindervines does prevent a lot of what Craig can do to win the game, linking non-creature spells together. And Wasteland takes out his Volcanic Island, really bottlenecking Craig here on his mana. Volcanic Island is going to allow for a Preordain, the best unrestricted cantrip right now. And a Treasure Cruise. Just so many powerful restricted cards to choose from. This list DJ's brewed up. Able to play so many of them. It's like 4 Treasure Cruises, pretty crazy. It's not that much worse to be playing a Treasure Cruise and a Dig Through Time and a Merchant Scroll, Ancestral. I mean, you still end up with a very powerful draw engine. Even if it feels a little patchwork, and this battle is not over. Craig actually double forcing and now brainstorming. Pyroblast not enough to make that Treasure Cruise resolve. Lion's Eye Diamond actually pretty dangerous with Sensei's top. You can crack it for mana and then tap to draw off of top for a lot of different Hail Mary lines. So that kind of takes Craig from having 1 mana all the way up to 5 mana. You can tap that Mox Opal and then crack the LED, tap to draw, and cast something up to 5 mana. Gataxian Probe shows Lightning Bolt, DT, and Brain Freeze. And Craig's actually pretty close to lethal with that hand. He can actually cast Demonic Tutor, crack the LED in response, and cast his Through the Breach. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not Through the Breach. The Underworld Breach. Hope I haven't been saying that wrong this whole time. Dak Faden. Oh, that is just rude. Dak grabbing that LED and another Wasteland. Craig has a Mana Crypt. Lightning Bolt takes out Dak. And we're spinning top. He's hanging in there, but this is rough. That Lion's Eye Diamond would have allowed him to combo off with the Underworld Breach. Every 3 cards getting 3 mana. Brain Freeze would have just allowed him to mill through his deck and just win the game. He's very close to winning here, but if DJ has anything to stop him, boy, at this point, I mean, there's also a line here of Demonic Tutor with 1 floating, tap to draw, and hope you hit a red source. If you don't think this is going to get any better, that is a possibility. It's a difficult spot. Craig does have Sensei's Divining Top, but he just has a handful of cards that are actually going to be worthwhile. Force of Negation, shutting down that Demonic Tutor, exiling it from the game. And we haven't seen any POs yet. With this board and 1 more mana, PO actually would be potentially enough to just win the game as well. Renin 6. And that is going to be able to recur Wastelands for the rest of the game. And DJ leading out with a Polluted Delta from the graveyard. All of Craig's mana from here. A PO for 3. Tapping Sensei's Top to draw no mana. Mana Vault. If he drew another PO, he may actually pull this out. Question is, what are the 2 cards underneath that Sensei's Top? Craig asking how many cards in DJ's library. Sensei's Divining Top. Underworld Breach. Mock Sapphire coming back. And he's going to Brain Freeze himself. I don't know if it's going to be for the full storm count. He's counting his library. So Brain Freeze targeting himself. And Lotus is in there. And just seeing just so much power out of this deck. Just kept trying to restrain it. But all of this time didn't have any type of clock. And eventually Craig drawing out of it. Able to just at this point he can actually balance with no lands in play as well. Brain Freeze DJ and then Ancestral him with no cards left in his library. So super powerful there. Stuck all of his lands wastelanded. His Lion's Eye Diamond stolen. Mock Sapphire destroyed by Cindervines. And in the end, able to get to the 4 mana necessary to cast a single PO, draw into another one. And that's going to do it. That the Underworld Breach, just so powerful. Underworld Breach with Brain Freeze. I mean, just straight up winning the game. Not 100% that you're going to win there, but man, I can't even guess the odds there. It's so tiny. You need like all of your mana artifacts to be at the bottom of the library somehow. It's astronomical. Go into game 3 here. Sapphire Ponder for DJ. And keeps one good one, fetches to shuffle the other ones away. What's this Volcanic? Going to be a Preordain. So a couple of cantrips, building his graveyard. He does have the big delve spells in his deck. Gataxian Probes gives him an idea of what's going on, and it is not good. Whew. Mox Opal would just be a darn near game win on turn 1 here. Leads out with his mana artifacts. And Dak Faden may end up punishing this. DJ now with 2 rubies. Not a ton of reason to play out those artifacts. That may end up really hurting Craig. He's got 2 POs in hand. Treasure Cruise, taking advantage of those early cantrips, the fetch land, the Gataxian Probe, all of it fueling the graveyard. And now Collector Oof. And Craig's actually just going to scoop to that. Not feeling it. Lightning Bolt would have been necessary to get out of there, but already probably hurting from that Mox being stolen. And DJ's Planeswalker Stompy taking down the match despite some incredibly powerful plays on the other side of the table. Sometimes slow and steady wins the race. That is all for this one, but don't worry, there is a lot more. You can check out our older videos, and we're always putting out new videos from ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Massachusetts. If you want to help the channel, of course, you can like, subscribe, share, tap that notification bell so you can know the next time our new videos come out. Thanks for watching.